I'm so glad you'll be participating in the Paideia Center reading groups this year. We're turning to the Westminster Confession of Faith. We want to study what it means to be Protestant within the Western Catholic tradition. And what better text is there than to consider this confession that has had such influence around the globe and for centuries now, and which continues to have wider and greater impact even in our own day. It's fascinating to consider the story of the Westminster Assembly and the Westminster Confession of Faith. Like many influential theological texts throughout church history, in one respect, it was a failure. The Assembly was convened by English Parliament to revise the 39 Articles. They pivoted along the way and began a new confession and then catechisms, and it was not adopted by the English Church. In one sense, it failed at its immediate task. And yet, from the very beginning, we see that it was adopted elsewhere, in Scotland and well beyond, to this day spreading around the globe so that now more Christians worship in churches that confess the Westminster Standards, the Confession of Faith, the larger and shorter catechisms, than at any time in Christian history and in more countries. It's one of the rare confessional statements that continues to expand in influence as time goes on, as opposed to dissipating. But subscribing to it or attesting its truth is one thing. Gaining familiarity, understanding, engaging the way in which it means to teach us to read Scripture and to perceive the world around us, that's another. That's why I'm so glad you'll be participating in one of our reading groups. We're going to study the confession carefully in our reading individually throughout the year, and we're going to gather 6 times in groups in cities around the globe and online for discussion, for engagement, for critical questioning that we might better understand it, why it says what it says, how it says it, why and how it leads us back to Holy Scripture ultimately as our source of life and blessing in Jesus Christ, and ultimately how it might shape us to be wise men and women, Christians faithful and fruitful in our own day. As you gather your text, as you prepare for your meetings, our prayer is that you would grow in love and appreciation for those who've gone before you, yes, but ultimately that you wouldn't stop there. That listening to those who followed Christ in the past would shed new light on His Word and ultimately on the triune God Himself, that we might all better learn to obey the first commandment, to love the Lord your God and to have no other gods before Him or beside Him, and that we might do that better for having obeyed the 5th commandment, honoring our theological fathers and mothers, those who've gone before us. That's our hope, that we would listen well to the past, that we would glean from this document, that we would bless one another with vigorous, charitable conversation, that we might know God better, and that we might be wise to follow Christ today.